okay, you know. So you got to tell everybody where on YouTube they can find all these videos.
I sent them a hyperlink on there in Blackboard.
What a deal. On Blackboard?
I think it works.
Discussions, Lab 4 discussion, lecture videos.
I think that'll work, but I'm not sure because I was logged in as a user.
Well, let's try.
It works. Now if I can learn how to work the camera, we'll be good.
Everybody loves the sound of their own voice.
Especially when it's right by the camera, it's cool.
Alright, I'm never going to check this channel again. Literally. If it works for you, great, but I'm just going to pretend it doesn't exist. And don't use my name anywhere in it, okay?
It's already got 10,000 hits, did you look?
No! Alright, well, what we want to do is just pick up where we left off last week, where we were creating a database application that managed some, I think, some sandwich data, and as you may or may not recall, we got as far as to be able to show it on the screen and then place an edit button in the edit column. Does that look familiar? We were trying to figure out how to actually catch that edit button click, right? Everybody with me? I know it's been a long weekend. By the way, the lab is posted. Did anybody see that?
Yeah, I read it. Looks interesting.
Looks fun.
The lab is posted. Good. That's positive feedback. Interesting and fun. Fantastic. And I would, yeah. So what we want is when we click on this button, we want a second form to appear where we can edit the individual elements of our sandwich, right? So here's what we do. If I go, what I did, and you remember, okay. So this is actually what I've done is instead of starting the whole thing again, I didn't save what we had last week. What I did is I went ahead and just pulled up the example. Did anybody look at the example I posted? Oh, so it's all new. Great. Okay. So last Friday we were talking about this particular event, this cell content click. And we were talking about how that is what we want to use to catch when that button is pressed. So every time, we put a little breakpoint there, every time we click in here, this cell content click event will fire. And what we want to do is we want to figure out things like the row index that we are going to be clicking on, right? Because we have many rows, many sandwiches. So the row index tells us which row we're on, and what we find is the data grid views control has a rows collection, kind of like an array. If we pass the row index in there, we can get the data about all of the cells in that row. And if you remember, where did we hide the ID? Does anybody remember? We hid it in cell number 0, and then we made cell number 0 a hidden cell. So there's actually number 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 cells in here. There's actually 5, and they number 0 to 4. So what we want to do is when we click in here, we want to go find the database ID of the record, and we've got that hidden in cell 0. Excuse me. So the code to do that would be to look inside the data grid view, which is that big control. Inside the rows collection, we'll pass in the row index that we had clicked on, and then we say cells sub 0, indicating the first cell, and that value that comes out of there is the ID of the record that we clicked on. Are we all together? I know it's Monday morning, we're starting right off with a bang. And what I had to do, notice I take that ID I got from the database and I place it into form2.recID. So let's switch over to form2 real quick. So form2 looks like this, which again you have as an example. And I basically created it by just dragging these individual elements over here onto the form one at a time. Does that make sense? And remember, when we did that, we could select the kind of controls we were going to get, text box, combo box, label, and I just left each of them as a text box. And when I drug it over here, it automatically created for me the label and the field. So it's kind of handy. And what I did is I went in behind the code and I actually created a property called recID and an internal variable to hold that. And notice it's write only. What do you suppose that means? Public write only property.
Can't read it.
Yeah, you can't read it. I didn't see any value in letting the user read the property, because what I want is, I want the form 1 to place the record ID of the one to be edited into form 2. So this is a write-only property. And that's what's happening right here when we take the value out of that hidden cell and we assign it to that property. So now form 2 knows the ID from the database of the record that we want to edit. Got it? We all square? Do we have any questions? Okay. And then, and this should look pretty familiar, show dialog, what's that going to do?
Show the form.
It's going to show form 2. So form 2 knows, at this point, how much information does it know about what it's supposed to edit?
Not much.
Not much. It knows the ID of the record in the database that it's supposed to edit, and that's all. So if we come over here, what I did is I wrote this form2.load. Now, when does the load event fire? Does anybody remember?
The form's put in memory.
Yeah, when the form first basically is shown. So when the form is put in memory, what it does is it says, if the rec ID is greater than 0, meaning it has been assigned, then use this sandwich table adapter, and then I have this function called fill by ID. And does anybody remember when we had on the board here? What is the job of the table adapter? If we review, we had the database, and we had the binding source, and we had the table adapter, and we had the data set. So what we're going to do is tell the table adapter that we want to get a record given a specific ID. We call that fill by ID. Does anybody remember what does this one do? What is it responsible for? This level.
What the data stored.
Hmm?
Where the data is stored, the details to get to it.
Yes, it's the details of how to connect to the database. Which means this could be on a server, this could be in a local file, it could be an Excel file. The binding source is what gives us the details about where the data is stored physically. And what's the table adapter do?
CRUD.
Hmm?
CRUD.
CRUD, yes, and what is CRUD?
Create, read, update, and delete.
So it holds all of the queries needed, and query is a general term, meaning the language or statements needed to pull out or put in data to the database. So this is where we hold kind of all the queries. And what does the data source represent?
Table.
It actually represents your data in memory. So yeah, this is where the sandwich table would live in memory as far as the program was concerned. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell the table adapter that we want to load up a data set, but we don't want to load all the records. What we want to do is only load the records that have a particular ID. And where did we get that ID? From the rec ID we put into the form. So let's see how to do this. So this line here introduces some new syntax. What we have is a sandwich table adapter. That's the same one we had before. And we're going to tell